begun on water policy. And I want to thank the O'Connor Institute and Valley Leadership for your leadership in putting this together. We're obviously at a very critical time, and the more information that we can get out on this issue of water and its importance to Arizona's sustainability, the better. And for all those also, just a little bit of a shameless plug, we're going to have a major water conference this upcoming Monday and Tuesday with the U.S. Chamber, the government of Israel, and a lot of high-ranking Arizona officials, including Governor Doug Ducey, on water policy and things we could do on innovation and technology to move forward. We're going to just jump right into the question. I'm going to be very, very brief in my introductions. I hope this isn't going to hurt my standing at the Capitol, but I've been told we have to keep this very, very, very tight. First, we're very pleased to have senators, and one of the things I wanted to say about our four guests, they're all distinguished, they all have great histories and knowledge of water, and they're all part of the governor's and CAP's water DCP steering committee, as I am as well. So here you're going to hear from four people that are really right in the middle of the action. We have Senator Lisa Tondo, who serves on the Water and Agricultural Committee and the DCP steering committee, as I mentioned. Spencer Camps, who's the VP of Legislative Affairs of Home Builders Association of Central Arizona. He has also been part of the Governor's Water Augmentation Council, has tremendous expertise and has a lot of good things to talk about when it comes to the economic development aspects of water. Tim Tomyer, the director of Tucson Water, he participates, as you know, on the DCP steering committee and GWAC. And we're very pleased to have Governor Stephen Lewis of the Gila River Indian community. He's a great leader in this state, and we're fortunate to have this is the Beatles of water with us here this morning. I'm going to first, since I like starting the morning tweeting, sometimes I get in trouble for that, but I learned that from the very top. If you could all limit your answers to about 240 characters to this. What do you see, and we'll start with Governor Lewis. What do you see as the single biggest challenge to meeting our water needs?
Well, first of all, thank you, and I hope I'm not the Ringo. Hello. Skutosh, good afternoon and good day. It's an honor to be here. My name is, again, Governor Stephen Earl Lewis of the Gila River Indian community. And again, what is the question?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I was told I was not allowed to repeat the question. What do you see as the single biggest challenge to meeting future water needs?
The single biggest challenge, and then again, thank you for coming out and spending your day here. I want to maybe give a little history here. It's going to be 2004 was the Arizona Water Settlement Act. And when you looked at this great movie about our groundwater, I think, you know, what also has to take into account really was that historic water settlement that was passed by Congress. Our Senator John Kyle, he took the leadership on this and pushed this forward. We couldn't have done that without his leadership. My father, the late Rod Lewis, was a long time, he devoted his whole entire legal career to fighting for regaining the Gila River Indian community's water. He was the first Native American to pass the bar here in Arizona and actually to argue a case before the U.S. Supreme Court and to be victorious in early 1982. And in fact, he argued before the namesake of your institution, Senator Dale O'Connor. So my prayers go out to her as well. Beloved individual and leader here in Arizona. In fact, you know, afterwards my father and her became great friends as well. But I think, you know, when you look and take into account where we're at after the Groundwater Act, after the Arizona Water Settlement Act was passed in 2004, in fact, December 10th, is the anniversary of that. We will be celebrating, we celebrate every year on Monday, our return of our water, what we call, as you know, the mantra is water is life. And for the community, we say that's our shoulda. Shoulda is our water. And when you look at just the numbers, the hydrology reports that are coming out, a drought is upon us. And for the near future, in fact, this is going to be the new normal now. A drought and over-allocation of our water supplies. We have to, as a diverse group, native tribes, and one thing about the Groundwater Act here as well was that, all the interests were there except for maybe one other significant group, which were native tribes. But we are at the table, especially with this steering committee, that I'm very really appreciative of that, even though I think, we have to speak in one voice. That's one thing. We have to reach beyond, our, really, what our needs are. We all have the needs. But when you look at over-allocation of the Colorado River, when you look at drought, there we are in some critical times, and I think, this whole group that you have, this very illustrious group of panelists this whole morning to today. I think we've spent so much time together with meetings, public meetings and panels. I know that we know our issues very well, and we are so close. I know for the community, we understand, especially the groundwater, as well as surface water, as well as the Colorado River water, which is so critical to the growth and to the economies of the state and all of the stakeholders here. It's important that we look at that we come up with a plan. And we're so close to a plan. I know we'll have some more discussion there. The Governor Ducey's DCP plan, Drought Contingency Plan, that plans for a sustainable future. Of course, we all have to look at ways that we are going to limit our use, but we have to do that in a fair and equitable way. So I'll lead off with that, and I know we'll have some more discussion, so I'll pass the mic.
Thank you, Governor. I'd like to go to the Senator. We'll jump tables here. And again, the question was, what do you see as the single biggest challenge to meeting our future water needs?
Thank you. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Now, yeah, okay. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Senator Lisa Otondo from Legislative District 4. I represent 4 counties: Yuma County, Maricopa County, Pima County, and Pinal County. I have the 2nd largest district in the state. Now, you said I had 240 characters.
Well, since you're a senator, you're allowed to filibuster. So,
well, I'll leave that to my colleague in the House, but I will make my answer much shorter. It's a much more complicated issue than one problem. We have an over-allocated river, the Colorado River. We have unregulated pumping of our groundwater. We are in the middle of a prolonged drought that could last a lot longer. And climate change exists. I believe in science.
thank you, Senator. Now we'll jump to Spencer Camps.
Thanks, Glenn. And as you mentioned, I work for the Home Builders Association of Central Arizona, and we've obviously been involved in a lot of these water issues over the last 10 years or so. And to answer your question on the greatest challenge of the state of Arizona, I think it's quite simple from our perspective. It's supply. That is, simply put, the biggest challenge we have. There's 2 thoughts in the water world from our perspective. We have too much water, but just not necessarily in the right place. Or we have too little water, not necessarily in the right place. And I say that because you can put a lot of the supply issue down to a management issue. So if you think, Arizona has a very, very rich history. We heard a lot of it today. You had a huge reliance on groundwater in Arizona for a number of years, and that was kind of the first bucket The second bucket was obviously the CAP canal and the Colorado River supplies that came into Arizona. The third bucket, which is the one we're kind of currently discussing today through the DCP process, is the supply we need to get us through the future. And that's still, yet to be fully quantified. I think it's a hodgepodge of supplies that exist today that aren't necessarily being used. And we're going to have to be creative about how we put those supplies to use, whether we have to modify the laws, whether we have to engage in water transfers. There's an old saying, water does flow uphill in money. And those kind of arrangements need to be made. And obviously the Gila River Indian community is a big part of that puzzle. But that's the discussion we're having by and large in DCP. As we've talked, we've got an over-allocated river system. We need to leave more water in Lake Mead. That stresses the system as it relates to supplies that people use today. And we need to be more efficient and more creative about how we use the existing supplies today. And so that's the key for economic development going forward. The solution to that problem I don't think has fully been answered, but hopefully it'll be answered soon.
Thank you, Spencer. And Tim, the single biggest challenge you see today in meeting our future water needs?
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I thought for a moment I would have to be edgy and say climate change, but I'm grateful that that's no longer edgy. Not in your book, and not in mine either. And so what I'll do is just put a finer point on that. It's uncertainty. One of the things as water managers we really seek is certainty, and it's not a city thing, it's not an agricultural thing. It is the thing we need to have water is to have certainty. And climate change is a key element of what does certainty mean moving forward. When we talk about drought implies that's an abnormal condition. So now we've shifted to maybe that's the new normal. But what I would argue is we still don't know what the new future normal is. We are still transitioning to a new future of what water availability looks like. That is a huge uncertainty, so we have to be focused on mitigation, we have to be focused on adaptation, and these are measures we can take in the near term to build certainty for the future, because we don't know what the new normal is yet.
Thank you all. And now I have some individual questions, and I'll start, Tim, with you. Are all cities the same when it comes to water supplies for their economic and population growth? And just how does it break down across the state? And Tucson has been doing some great things in terms of a whole host of new jobs. How is Tucson positioned for growth?
Thank you. Clearly, if you're citing a business, Tucson's the place to cite it. We have unmatched water reliability and resiliency for the future, but that doesn't mean we're in a class by ourselves. I'll begin by saying many, if not all of the cities have made it a priority to bring water supply portfolios together to provide sufficient quantity, sufficient quality, and have a margin of growth opportunity there. So they're, by and large, the cities in Arizona are in good condition, but they are aggressively seeking additional water or securing the water they have or other means, partnerships, transfers, whatever that is, because we're always looking toward the future. So that is an ongoing challenge. For the most part, there's not a lot of people in crisis mode right now. When you look across the state, though, there are some smaller communities, rural communities, communities that don't have access to the Salt River or to the Colorado River water. Those communities are facing some significant challenges and are looking at creative solutions. The state is working on providing frameworks to open up new opportunities for use of water. And so we have to stay focused on that. DCP is taking all the air out of every room right now, but when we started the steering committee process, the first thing I said is, I'll focus on that. I'll stay within the sideboards, but as soon as we're done, we recognize we have a whole lot of more work to do. So, thank you. $5 to Kathy Ferris. what I'll add to that is that we have to also be thinking in terms of decoupling water demand from economic growth. We've already shown in Tucson, you've seen it in Phoenix, you've seen it in many of the cities around Arizona. You don't have to have increasing total water demand to have a thriving economy. Through conservation, through wise water management, and through other actions, you can live within your means of water. Well, certainly while you're trying to extend those means, growth in economy does not have to mean growth in water demand. It's investments you need to make, it's commitments you need to make, but decoupling is the thing we need to be focusing on.
Thank you, Tim. I may follow up on some of your points, but a lot of good nuggets there. Spencer, 25 years ago, the Arizona legislature created the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District to make it easier for developers to meet the 100-year assured water supply requirement established in the Groundwater Management Act. So basically, a developer can demonstrate that 100-year water supply requirement by enrolling lands in the CAGRID and effectively agreeing to have the recharge amounts of groundwater that are over the limits established by the assured water supply rules. And until recently, CAP could rely on extra Colorado river supplies to meet this replenishment obligation. Now that we're facing cuts in the Colorado River supplies and pressure to keep water in Lake Mead, how will we how will the CAGRID, the replenishment district, meet its future replenishment obligations?
Very good question.
That's not a yes or no.
No, that's not a yes or no. I'm just going to take a couple minutes and talk about the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District because I think Tim touched on some good points about whether economic growth needs to rely on water demand, and I actually agree with them. I don't think it necessarily does. You know, one of the interesting statistics in Arizona is today we use the same amount of water we used in 1957, according to the Department of Water Resources, with 7 million people now living in the state of Arizona. And how is that? And how is that is that we believe one of the key factors, many, conservation, the ag community using new methods to reduce their water amount, but one of them is obviously the retirement of ag land pumping. Agriculture uses more water than homeowners do. It's as simple as that, and homes are built under the 100-year assured water supply test, and we're highly regulated, and so we use less water. But so as we retire ag land, we retire the demand for water, and I think that's a positive thing for Arizona and a good thing for Maricopa County specifically. But the requirements of the Arizona law is that development, when it does access groundwater to serve homes, it must replenish that water. And that's not a requirement agriculture has. That's solely for residential development or anybody who subdivides. And the vehicle to get that done is CAGRID, the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District. And so the result of that is over the last 22 years, about 925,000 residents, either in Maricopa, Pinal, or Pima County, rely on CAGRID. And so Glenn's question is, the growth used to rely on excess water out of the Colorado River system. We implemented in Arizona some very smart ideas, I think, to not send our water to California many years ago and to use it in Arizona. One was to use for growth, one was to put it in the ground through the water bank. And so that water supply is going to go away because that water is now going to be left in Lake Mead. And so the question is, what are we going to do? And that is the million-dollar question from my perspective. It keeps me up at night. But the good news is the Gila River Indian community, who has significant water resources because of the Federal Water Settlement Act, has entered into what I would consider probably the largest water purchase in the history of Arizona for the GRD to purchase 33,000 acre feet for $95 million, which will take care of growth through at least 2030, maybe even further. And so that allows us to, at least from the residential sector of the industry, that allows us to continue to grow through that time period in excess of 2030. And even the better news on that. And so I just don't want to forget and say we're very grateful for that transaction. I didn't obviously engage in the transaction, the GRD did, but my members benefit from it. But the secondary benefit of that transaction is that water from the GRD can be used for any economic development project in the 3 county service areas. So the CAP service area, Pinal County, Maricopa County, and Pima County. So that water can be drawn down by any project for the next, foreseeable future to benefit economic growth in Arizona. So we're very grateful for that, and we hope that that deal does get finalized and fully adopted by the GRD, and we can have that water going forward.
Governor Lewis, to piggyback a little bit on some of the things that Spencer said, given that the Gila River Indian community has the largest cap allocation of any user, as well as allocation from other sources, just maybe some comments about the community's plans for using that water for the community's economic development, and does the community see opportunities for using part of its water allocation to promote economic growth more regionally? And I think from some of Spencer's comments, and let me just also editorially say, just thank you for your leadership and your father's leadership. Having worked for Senator Kyle, I know that was one of his proudest achievements. I just appreciate the Gila River Indian community always being very cognizant of its of the state at large.
Thank you. And just as the 2004 Water Settlement Act provided certainty for Arizona, our Gila River Community Council earlier this week, we approved the CAGRID deal unanimously. And this is going to provide, as was said, certainty for the future. This has to do with strengthening our aquifers. There are over 9 million acre feet of water that are stored in our aquifers. This is going to allow all of Arizona to start to use this and to strengthen our aquifers for our community. We have aquifers, one of really an innovative way, and this is also about innovation and about using technology as well to answer these needs. And what we're doing is, and when I became governor, I wanted to rededicate our community's ties, our responsibilities to our own water cycle. And what we looked at was bringing back the river, bringing back the Gila River. That is who we are named for, the Archino Author. And what we did was we started to create and to plan for a managed aquifer recharge system. It's called the MAR-5. And we started to use that to store water and also to bring back the flow of the river and also build up that wetland, the riparian habitat as well. So the land is actually healing itself again, and it's looking like how the Gila River was flowing hundreds of years ago. So that is a very significant impact for us as well. We're also looking at, as was said, when we talk about the various stakeholders, our community, we're over 23,000 tribal members and growing. We are farmers, but we also have an economic engine as well that we need to keep as healthy as possible and strong as possible to provide for all of our community members as well. We're responsible for the roads, schools, our healthcare, housing as well, and infrastructure. And so this is something that, as governor, I am myself, Lieutenant Governor, and our 17-member tribal council, we are a constitutional government. We're responsible for taking care of our community now and into the future as well. And as was said, my father dedicated his whole life to this, and so this is now dropped to me as carrying on this legacy of him, and all of our past leaders have gone before who have sacrificed to get us to this point. And so we are in very, I know it's trying times, but also there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here. For us, we're looking at, we have a state-of-the-art water delivery system. The Pima Maricopa Irrigation Project is probably the most successful federal capital project in the United States. It's a state-of-the-art system that's going to be bringing water throughout our reservation, laterals and canal systems, and is going to be using the latest technology, Wi-Fi for the water gates, and we're going to be training and educating our community members to come back, and to be hydrologists and water engineers to run this system when it's fully built out in 2027. And we're looking at a new generation of farmers as well. We know that hundreds of years ago, we were the breadbasket of this area. We want to be the breadbasket again. And so we are encouraging, that's one of my initiatives, encouraging a new generation of farmers as well to come and to start to farm and to reinvigorate our agricultural history as well. So we're looking at, we have a current farm, the Ramona Farms. They actually are farming all of our indigenous crops. Again, our heirloom corn and wheat, temporary beans. And these are being sold at Whole Foods and at gourmet restaurants on the East Coast in New York City. And so, they found their niche, and they're actually being very profitable as well as a farm. So there is a lot of opportunity there, in regards to the farm to table movement and the organic foods movement. So this is something that we are wanting to regain our place again in the breadbasket of not only our community members, and as you know too, we have, and this is also a very sobering fact as well, we have one of the highest instances of type 2 diabetes, not only among tribes but in the world. And this is a direct result of over 100 years of the Gila River being siphoned off and that water literally not being totally, being moved and our Gila River not flowing through our community and turned our subsistence patterns upside down. So we're still dealing with those health issues, those generational traumas as well. So, there's a lot of opportunity here, and it's both economic, it's cultural, it's spiritual, and we have some tremendous opportunities here before us.
Well, the agricultural opportunity is $18 billion. You can address some other problems. And the way you're describing it, I'm ready for lunch, so we're going to immediately, no, I'm kidding, we'll continue. But thank you, Governor Lewis, and again, thank you for continuing your father's very distinguished legacy. Senator, this past year, when CAP announced a plan to move water off of farmlands in Mojave County and send it down the CAP system to be used for CAGRA, local leaders in Mojave County strongly objected, and eventually the CAP board unanimously rejected the proposed deal. Do you see a future for such deals between agriculture and cities? And is it important to accommodate population and economic growth while still protecting core agriculture in the state? And how do we do that?
Okay, I can already tell Spencer Camps is going to love my answer. I was born and raised in rural Arizona. Let's get that straight. I too, like Rusty, have a long history, as my family does, in Arizona. 43rd Northern used to be my grandmother's sheep ranch, and my grandfather herded sheep through Sedona and Oak Creek and up onto the San Francisco Peaks. I have family that farms in Pinal County. I have family all over the state. But one thing is for sure. There may be some deals, but not to the demise of rural Arizona. What needs to happen before any water transfers is a reformation of CAGRD. Now, there's room for growth in both Phoenix and Tucson. It becomes a problem when developments occur outside of the city services and there's not renewable water. So they have to join CAGRD. And the legislature unwittingly, when they created CAGRD, created a market for water purveyors. So they're coming to us in the rural areas, and very similar as what was said in the film we saw, asking farmers to sell their land with their water to go have a martini in La Jolla and remove the water from the rural areas for CAGRD. This is a problem. It's a huge problem for those of us who look at Arizona and say, why aren't we planning better? We can grow in other areas. We can use that water that is there and let it remain in the communities. There can be flourishing economies where water exists. Why do we continually develop areas that have no water and then send it at the cost of whom? At the cost of you and the taxpayers. And let me say, wherever we send water, there should be cost-benefit analysis. And a part of that should be paid by the beneficiaries. There is, as I said, room for both industrial and economic growth in Tucson and in Phoenix. What I'm saying is better planning. Grow where there's water. Use technology as it develops. And do not destroy our rural areas.
Thank you, Senator. I'm going to use some of your comments to lead into the next set of questions, and I'll start with Tim. For the opportunities, the answer is yes. I'm going to answer the question before I ask it. Yes. Are there opportunities to stretch current supplies through more demand management and reuse? What's the low-hanging fruit, and how far can this really take us, though, in meeting our future demand?
Thank you, and what a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. I will be on a panel with you any day. So. Certainly there's more room for conservation, for water efficiency. Even in Tucson, where we're pretty broadly recognized as being very advanced in this area, we're always challenging ourselves, and there's things we can do on our side of the system, namely our lost and unaccounted for water is still higher than I would like it to be. But on the demand side, just as an example, in 2002, we were our total demand was basically at our CAP allocation. We have the largest M&I subcontract for the municipal sector, and we were basically bumping up against that. And in the last 16 years, we've brought that significantly downward to the fact that we've grown into banking water for the future and also flexibility to contribute solutions to things like the DCP. So we've done that, and we're not expecting to be anywhere close to being done. There's, for example, high efficiency toilets, not the sexiest topic in the world. We've done a ton of those. They save a ton of water, and we've only penetrated about 40% of the toilets, of the very, very high water using toilets. They're still in use in Tucson. So we're nowhere near being mission accomplished on conservation. So some of the low-hanging fruit is keep doing what you've been doing to be on the trajectory you're on, and don't stop. Keep going downward in water use. The other lesson I would take away from Tucson is to really challenge your community to build up the resilience with things that are available to you that maybe not being fully utilized. And in Tucson right now, our big initiatives are around local rain and stormwater. This is, it's interesting because Tucson's come full circle, that the fact that Tucson was there was because there was a flowing Santa Cruz River at the base of a mountain. And it's the longest continuously cultivated area in the continental U.S. because of the water that was flowing at the surface in a river next to a mountain that's very dry today. So we are looking back to the sky. We're looking back to rainwater as a option that we need to fully exercise. Now, the engineering bee runs the numbers and says, well, the return on investment in rainwater harvesting is, it's an 84-year payback period. When I'm challenged by a council member to plan 500 years into the future, that all of a sudden looks pretty attractive to me. So we need to continually rethink how we've deployed our water. We need to continually rethink what we used to treat as a nuisance. We've come a long way with wastewater. We still treat stormwater as a nuisance. So those are the things I would leave you with. I'd like to add one more comment, if I could.
Please.
Tucson's mayor and council on Tuesday approved me to provide a letter of support to the drought contingency plan as presented on the November 29th meeting. They gave me a little bit of parameters to work with the deal to satisfy some of the issues that remain. We recognize there are still issues that remain. They've given me some latitude to offer some solutions there. But Tucson has already voted to approve DCP as well.
All right. We love breaking news. Thank you, Tim. Would anyone else, I know that a number of you have also touched on some of these low-hanging fruit, but I think this is an important area. When Spencer mentioned we're at about the same water use as 1957, when now we have 7 million people, that's pretty remarkable. So what are some other things for the other panelists that we should be looking at doing? Low-flow toilets, so noted, but some other things we should be looking at.
If I may, just continuing to encourage new technology. Things are changing all the time, so especially those of you who are leaders in the community out there, these are things that we really have to pay attention to. And I just want to congratulate not only Tucson, but there are some other cities who are doing some great work as far as conservation is concerned. And also, take a look at Las Vegas. The recycling of water, reuse, very important. So,
Thank you, Senator. Spencer?
Obviously, desalinization is a big issue. It's talked a lot about in Arizona. It's not easy, it's not cheap, but that is something that we need to seriously consider. It requires partnership with either Mexico or California if you want to do it in the most efficient way, in my opinion. But that takes time, and we need to start kind of moving forward on that. The other thing that I would just like to touch on from just an economic development perspective is we think DCP is a critical component for Arizona moving forward, solely because, as we heard today, the hydrology is not good. The lake is going to drop below 1075. When that happens, there's going to be a message sent out across this nation that Arizona does not have water. I mean, that's going to be the headline. And that creates, I think, bad news for Arizona. And I think DCP takes care of that issue because we've managed our water. We have a plan in place. That plan will allow uses to continue as they are continuing today, and it's still safe to invest in Arizona. And I think that is a critical message that Arizona needs to be prepared to send when Lake Mead starts getting below 1075.
You're right on the mark, Spencer. That's something that would keep me up at night if we saw those types of headlines in the New York Times. Governor, anything to add? I know you mentioned a couple of things you're doing in the ag space.
Right, and really, just to echo those sentiments, DCP right now, that's the only plan we have. And, with this important steering committee, I think those of you out there, you need to really keep in tune with the news of this going on. We have a limited amount of time to bring this, and it's good that we're finally getting the buy-in of all the stakeholders, because we need to get this to the state legislature, come their new legislative session for them to vote on this. Because this is important. This is paramount to the survival of all the stakeholders in Arizona, all the tribes, all the business interests of the cities, the ag community. Going to one more aspect I want to bring up about using innovative techniques. What we're doing is we're lining all of our canals as well, so we can stop a lot of the evaporation, a lot of loss. Sometimes, unlined canals, you can lose 30, 40%, sometimes 70%. Of water that's being delivered. So, and I think, the federal government, the state needs to step up with those innovative programs to help to encourage conservation of water. I mean, this goes back to who we are, through our indigenous value system, that we do not waste water. And, this goes back to the hood civilization that we trace ourselves to. Some of those canal systems that APS and SRP pattern themselves on, some of those original canals are over 1,000 years old. So that's how long we've been agriculturalists. That's how long Arizona has that ancient footprint. We're also looking at being a recovery agent as well for long-term storage credits. So those that have long-term storage credits, they can store their water with us, and that frees up a lot of the Colorado River CEP water as well for use, that will have beneficial use across the board as well. So we need to continue to look at those innovative ways, and I think tribes, we've always been innovators, or else we would not have survived this long. And so that's instinctive to us. And so I just wanted to share those opinions.
Well, Governor, I have to say, you wrapped it up beautifully. You provided the history, you provided the importance, the preciousness of water, as well as a very constructive action item for all of us and I want to say on behalf of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we're going to work very hard to make sure that the DCP Plus plan does go through the legislature. I want to thank Sarah Porter of the Kyle Center for Water Policy at the Morrison Institute for all of her great work. Water is economic development, and through the efforts of the panelists and people like Sarah, and thanks to the leadership of the O'Connor Institute and Valley Leadership,